serious, what is the story of death in your school? This is short, but it still affects me. My school has a thing where the 8th grader will introduce 6th grader into the middle school. When I was in 8th grade, I had a small group of 6th graders that I took care of. One of them, let's call B, was a funny kid that liked to make others laugh. I thought he was a great person. B was great friends with my sister. I never saw anything wrong with him. Now a year later, I was in 9th grade. B had committed suicide because of bullies and home life. Only if I knew him better and been there for him, he probably will still be here. There were 3 deaths during my time in secondary school, middle plus high school combined. First was a week into my first year. On the way home from school I saw a girl go flying past me on her bike down a hill. I didn't think much of it until she went straight into the road and got hit by a car. Not a nice sight. Second was a special ed kid who thought it was funny to jump from the top floor down then gap in the middle of the stairs. He later died in hospital. Third was another road accident. Some kids were messing around on the way home and one of them was pushed into the road before getting hit by a school bus. And does college count? One of my best friends jumped in front of high-speed train, but luckily survived. A student hung himself on a tree by the school entrance during 3rd period. Body was removed by the time classes ended. A few days after, I happened to overhear people from his class talking about how annoying he was to everyone and cringy stuff he had done. I went to a school where the academic pressure was fucking intense. 2 kids killed themselves and cited the pressure as their reasons for doing it. Teachers gave us all lectures on not putting too much pressure on ourselves before assigning the usual crazy amount of homework. 2 deaths. One was a kid I hung out with at school sometimes, not close. He committed suicide and nobody cared at all. I don't think anyone even knew besides myself and his family obviously. Teachers said nothing at all. The other death was a very popular student who drunk drove speeding down a rural road, flipped the car and hit a tree. Dead. He had just started working at my job as well in a pizza shop for about a week. So, I knew him, but obviously not well. The entire school was in mourning. It was the total opposite of my school acquaintance. Kids crying in the hallways, an assembly to announce the funeral, teachers would let kids out of class early, etc. Mostly kids just faking it for attention. I only felt bad for his actual friends, some of which I do call friends myself. His mom went on a crusade to try and get teens banned from driving cars. It wasn't a popular idea. Edit. There was another. I had only thought of students. My school days are a long time ago. A science teacher I had lost his child to cancer. He fell into depression. He stopped teaching his regular classes, and I guess the school put him on light duty of sorts. He just ran the computer labs and assisted other teachers. He looked completely lost in a brain fog for a few months, very slow to respond. Then he committed suicide. Hit by a student in a car in the car park. Was a dark time for the school as it wasn't the driver's fault as the kid ran out in front and the driver was only doing 5 miles per hour, but he hit the kid who then hit his temple on a curb. There was a witch hunt for the driver in school until they released the video footage from one of the security cameras that basically absolved him. Oh, there were several. I guess most gruesome was the one where one of the teachers got stabbed multiple times by her ex-husband in front of the school gates. Multiple children ages 7 to 10 were watching. She collapsed, bled out and died on her way to the hospital. It took them 2 weeks to remove the blood stain from school grounds. Dude got 2 decades in jail. Apparently she kicked him to the curb because he wasn't all there. They left 2 beautiful children. I hope he rots in hell. Car accident killing 4 kids from my school. They were speeding and crashed into someone else. Their car flew down a bank and ended up decapitating one kid at the back. Wasn't wearing his seatbelt. A second car was following them with their friends. They stopped and tried to help, but there was nothing to do. One kid was a teacher's kid. The entire school took a day off to go to their funerals. A kid in my class died in a quad bike accident. He used to race and decided at the end of the race to take all his protective gear and do dumb shit before loading his quad on his trailer. Quad flipped on him, crushed his chest, and died on the way to the hospital. We've also had a suicide. Our school had accommodations for students living far away. He jumped from the second floor during the weekend. One of the dudes who hung out with a bad crowd got hit in the head with a baseball bat at a park by some rival banger and was put in a coma during senior year. They decided to pull the plug on him. There were a few student deaths when I was in high school, but the teacher death that happened hurt the most. The summer before my senior year of high school, the band teacher died from an unexpected heart attack. It was a really hard time. Most of us knew him since 4th grade or earlier. Since my school district was tiny, he taught both elementary school band and high school band, and he was the one who gave the woodwind and percussion lessons. We got a new band teacher at the start of the year, very young, though he was married with a kid. He seemed great and supportive, and he pushed us to play our old band teacher's favorite song better than we ever had before. Then halfway through the year, he disappeared. Turned out, he was sleeping with a junior. We had to start all over again. Back in high school, a student died unexpectedly in his sleep. Half a year later, the same thing happened to a teacher. And one of my former college classmates died in a car accident 2 years ago. I had a classmate, who was also my boyfriend, who died in a plane crash just few weeks after we graduated high school. He was loved by everyone in the class, and we had even made a large crowdfund in the class to get him his graduation cap, well, the Danish equivalent thereof. They're crazy expensive, and he couldn't afford one, so we all got together and bought one for him as a surprise. Loads of people showed up for the funeral, from classmates to former teachers. It was absolutely devastating to have lost such an amazing guy. My high school had 5 people die in separate intoxicated driving accidents. 2 brothers were shot a year apart, which is unusual in the quiet suburban neighborhood. 1 kid raped and killed his underage neighbor, and several overdosed. I was only there 2 years. When I was 16, one of the kids 2 grades younger than me got raped and subsequently murdered by a child molester one weekend. It was a big school, so I can't say I ever personally knew anything about her, but it shocked pretty much everyone that it happened. When I was younger, there was this Vietnamese family that lived a few houses from us. I was friends with their kids. Their father was an abusive unemployed alcoholic who would regularly beat his kids. One night he came home from drinking. He had a jerry can full of gasoline which he proceeded to pour on himself, and then he lit himself on fire. He was suffering from depression due to his employment status. The next few days in my school bus he was the talk of the school. I talked to the man's kids about it, and they responded with "Yeah, dad's dead." I mean, it is kinda sad. Those kids had no love for their dad. You could see the burn mark from his melted sandals for a few days on top of the manhole, where he burned himself. This happened when my mom was in school. A middle school girl told the gym teacher she couldn't run because she had a heart condition. The gym teacher made her run anyway, and she died right there on the track. Girl sat next to me and was my partner for French class. The next year, she was dating someone from another local school district who apparently snapped after a breakup, went to her house with a shotgun, and killed her on her doorstep. He later got into a standoff with the police at his own house and shot himself in his room. The funeral was just awful. She had a huge support group of friends and almost the entire high school showed up to pay their respects. It's incredibly sobering being at the funeral of someone younger than you. She was a very sweet girl, incredibly quiet, but never would have hurt anyone or anything. When I was in 7th grade, one of the Latin teachers in our middle school committed suicide. Nobody knew how to tell us that at the time, so they just said she passed away. Nothing got done in any of our classes that day, and it was right before Thanksgiving break. They didn't confirm it was suicide until a few weeks later, but I was told from my drum teacher, who worked with the school, that they all knew. Apparently it just came out of nowhere. Nobody knew what she had been dealing with, or was planning, or even suspected anything, likely because she was one of the most liked teachers at the time. Seeing 7th graders consoling teachers was a wild sight, cause they lost a friend and co-worker too. A year ago, a Muslim, overweight student in my school collapsed on the staircase. Apparently he had to fast because of his religion, but his heart couldn't handle it. He died on the spot and was only 18 years old. Edit. I forgot to mention that he had a heart condition. I think it was a hole in his heart he was born with. Why he still went through fasting is something I don't know. Maybe it didn't used to be an issue for the majority of his life. Maybe he practiced it differently. IDK. Sorry, I can only speculate. A quiet, awkward kid who had special needs and bullied for it was riding his bike home one evening on some trails and carrying a knife. He wrecked and the knife went into his chest. I didn't know him too well, but we had mutual friends. Afterwards, all the crying and sadness expressed by the kids who had made fun of him was gross. One of my classmates was driving himself and his little brother home after school one afternoon. Crossing a busy highway, they got T-boned, and that was that. It was a small town and small school, so everybody knew everybody. A girl in my school accidentally shot herself in the head while she was joking around with a gun. She thought she was holding an unloaded one. She died on the spot before the ambulance could get to her. Her sister was in the room with her, and she is getting treated for PTSD. That's the end of the video. Hope you guys like, comment and subscribe. Can we reach 5 likes and 10 subscribers? This was the Reddit Bible, and as always, till next time.